Hi, good evening. I'm just going to wait just a couple of seconds and see if anybody shows up. Good evening, Natural Capitalist Reed. How are you? We miss you over on Twitter. It's a shame they haven't reinstated you. Auntie Giovanni, good evening. Yeah, the nature of the topic is Israeli intelligence pre 9/11. This is a very sensitive subject. In my years of studying the events of September 11, 2001, and terrorism by its in general, uh, just seems to be the most anticipated subject of all. And I can understand why. In terms of talking about the subject of Israeli intelligence, it leads to two camps that I've noticed. One is uh, the anti Israeli fanatics, or as I would like to tell them, the anti Zionists who hide behind the cover of Zionism or anti Zionism, but they just don't like Jews for some reason. And these are usually people of the right wing, especially for 9/11. Notice a large contingent of truthers in the truth movement who talk about Israel in 9/11 are basically the ones who promote the most in terms of fringe conspiracies. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I believe in a conspiracy involving the intelligence apparatuses and to some level the State Department and foreign governments. But I'm not a fringe conspiracy theorist. I'm not somebody who says the beliefs that really just go on beyond the pale of rationale, if you will. No planes, CGI, phone calls are faked, um, nuclear bombs in the basement of the World Trade Center. I don't believe in any of that stuff. And it's really meant to discourage people from studying the subject. That's for one. And two, I noticed with the fringe conspiracy surrounding Israel, it's meant to corral the more careful, more studious researchers into the fringe conspiracy network. And so that's a problem. Oh, the Twin Towers were holograms. Well, believe it or not, there is actually breed that you bring this up. There is a forum called Let's Roll. I don't even know if they're around anymore, which is run by Phil Jahan and Brian Staveley, and they actually believe on September 2001, that nobody died in the World Trade Center. The whole building was empty, and the jumpers were actually mannequins being pushed out by federal agents. And that's what they believe, which is one of the more outrageous conspiracies I've ever heard. But in this discussion, I'm going to try and do the best I can into talking about the Israeli apparatus, the Mossad, and their integration into the United States. And there were three Israeli rings. Everybody talks about the dancing Israelis. That was a term coined by the media, actually. In the FBI report, they're called the high fivers, and that's what they were originally called. Um, I'm going to tell you why this group of Israelis are not as important as another two Israelis who worked at Urban Moving System, who probably were absolutely more important than the dancing Israelis. Um, but first, let's talk about the Urban Moving System. In regards to the events of September 2001, this is one area that really doesn't have too much public knowledge, right? So, Urban Moving Systems is basically um, a moving company that was based on, they're no longer there at this address, but the address was 1720 Willow Avenue in Weehawken, New Jersey, which is basically just I think it was like 7, 8 miles from the World Trade Center on the other side of the Hudson River. Um, they're owned. The manager of Urban Moving Systems was owned by Dominick Suter, who himself is a dual national. He lived here in New York. He also has a residence in Israel. Um, they have been a company for a couple of years. In fact, Urban Moving Systems is still in existence. They're now in Manhattan, but not under the same manager. He's no longer the manager there. They have a different company, still name. They're in New York, but just different people. Um, Urban Moving Systems and Dominick Suter in the year 1999 and 2000 would put out full page ad. I mean, a short page ad in the New York Post, um, New York Times, and also on Craigslist about hiring visiting Israeli nationals who are coming into the United States to study here in the country. And these were people with student visas. These were T1 student visas. They were temporary. They would last anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And then you would have to go back to immigration and then reapply for another student visa renewal. That's how it works. It wasn't permanent. It's not a permanent visa. And this is also a work. And then, by the way, a lot of these people that were hired by Urban Moving Systems didn't have a work permit either. There was not a work visa. So they weren't supposed to work at Urban Moving Systems. There's another visa for that. Because what they didn't want was to pay taxes on the money that they earned while working at Urban Moving Systems. Ingenious little slight in regards to how do you work your way around not paying taxes on the dollars that you work for, right? But in the year 2001, on June 22nd, 2001, Urban Moving Systems was awarded a federal funding grant of $498,750. Sorry, it was non-federal funding. No, excuse me. It was a federal grant of $498,750 and a non-federal grant of $166,250. So for a grand total of $665,000. That's a lot of money in 1 month. And it's not like this is a major moving company. They don't do international moves. They do East Coast moving, but nothing to the extremes. They don't go across country or nothing like that. The state of New Jersey filed a lawsuit in Hudson County Superior Court against Dominick Suter and Urban Moving Systems for violating the state's Consumer Fraud Act and regulations set forth in the Public Movers and Warehousing Licensing Act, also in that year. So Suter was actually looking at a lawsuit in terms of violating the Consumer Fraud Act. And what they did was basically they would help move somebody. And I was a mover once when I was living in Las Vegas. And I could tell you how this worked. I was a mover for about a year. And I moved with this company called AAA back in 2003. And they would just, hire help right on the street and whatever. But I was recommended by a friend there. And they would, if you had a short move and it was within 2 hours, you could pay a certain amount. But if you go outside of 2 hours, and this all depended on the movers and how fast they were, sometimes these guys were slow, they would charge you for every half hour. And a lot of these guys aren't professionals, right? These are students from Israel. So they're not used to doing manual labor in regards to lifting heavy stuff and stuff. These guys were young. late teens, early 20s, just out of college, and all males. By the way, when you hear like the Israeli males, well, these guys were Mossad. Well, no, these guys were IDF, right? They trained in the military because every male, I think it's what is it, 16, has to join the Israeli military at some point. I think it's like 2 or 3 years. Don't hold me to it. Hey, good evening, guys. I'm glad there's a couple of people. He's 16 people. Great. Wow, 16. A lot of people. Anyway, um, yeah. So these guys, they didn't have much experience, so they would damage the product. And this company is insured, but not, they weren't heavily insured. So where they got this grant from of $655,000, this was not something that was checked on by any investigative agency unless it's classified. And we could get to that in a minute because there's a lot of stuff after 9/11 that they recovered from Irving Moving Systems that is not public. And I want to talk about that here today to you that you may not know about. Very incriminating stuff, by the way. However, so you have this company based in Weehawken, New Jersey, that would hire temporary students from Israel here in the United States, here for just 3 to 6 months, no longer, and then they would go back. Well, fast forward to September 11, 2001, right? Because this is where the real meat begins. 10:10 wins. A plane has crashed into the North Tower. A woman by the name of Maria. Now, what I'm going to elucidate to you today here, most of it is coming from the FBI redacted reports. I'm not going to use speculation. If I do, I'll tell you. But the information I'm going to be talking about is basically from the FBI redacted reports. Now, a year prior, I did probably the longest article I've ever done regarding the Israeli moving company, Urban Moving Systems, and the FBI redacted reports. The problem with the FBI redacted reports is they're not in chronological order. In other words, if you go to scrib.com and you go to archive.org, what you'll see is that if you type in Dancing Israelis PDF, right? So what you'll see FBI Dancing Israelis. So what you'll see is you'll see a page from like say September 14th. And then you'll see a police report or an FBI report dated September 11th. And then the next report is September 17th. So it's all over the place. So what I did was, and this took about 2 months' time, was I wrote an article and it was all I did was put the FBI reports in chronological order. And then I put my own commentary, which was based upon the news reports on the day themselves. So in other words, I just put it in chronological order. The news reports and the FBI reports all in the same line. I'll post that link at the description box of this stream so you could see it. And I'll share it with you. You could read the article yourself. But I would recommend reading the FBI reports because they have pictures of what was found on their possession and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff there. I couldn't post the everything on the Medium article, but I posted the information. Now Maria is a resident in a building called Doric Towers. Doric Towers is 1 mile away from the Urban Moving Systems warehouse in Weehawken, New Jersey. The address at Doric Towers is 100 Manhattan Avenue, Union City, New Jersey. It is I believe it's, and don't quote me, I'm going to be a little bit off here. I think it's 30 stories tall. It could be a little bit more, but it's a large building right near the Hudson River. And this is the building. And Maria was all the way near the top or somewhere in the middle in the top, right above there. So she could see right into Lower Manhattan. If you've never been to Union City, New Jersey, right near the Hudson, you have a clear view of Lower Manhattan. So, and because Tuesday was a really clear day, um, they saw, I mean, it was picture clear. They saw what was happening at the World Trade Center. So Maria, I think she was in her 60s. She had a binoculars because a friend called her, and her friend told her, "Go look outside. The World Trade Center is on fire." And so she did. And so she took these binoculars and started looking in the direction of the World Trade Center. All of a sudden, something caught her eye, and she looked down to the parking lot of Doric Towers. And there was a white van and three males, three individuals, who were seen high fiving, hugging each other, and celebrating what seemed like celebration of the attacks of the North Tower. And she found this really odd that they would celebrate an attack like this. Um, and so what she did, and thankfully she did this because it really, we would have never known otherwise. She took down the license plate of the van because it warrant her. She thought that this would warrant the police to investigate these people who are celebrating the attacks. Now, what happened was she didn't call the police right away. Her husband had left for jury duty at 8:25 a.m. And then she called General Can Company, which is a cab, to take her son. Um, I don't know where. I don't know where, but it's redacted in the report, which is fine because it's personal information. That's why it's redacted. And she was actually listening to 1010 Wins, but she didn't hear any information regarding the World Trade Center until um, she opened the balcony door, walked into the balcony, and she looked at the World Trade Center, and she saw the building on fire after a friend called her. And she recalled that the males were white, um, in their mid 20s, no facial hair, no glasses, clean cut, no hats, and all of them were wearing short sleeve shirts, and all of them were lean build. She recalled that one male number one had light hair, which was cut very short. The top of his hair appeared somewhat curly or wavy. He was wearing a white t shirt and light blue jeans with a hole in the left knee. He was also smoking cigarettes. And that she believed she had the best memory of this male. Now, if you look at the Israelis who had curly hair, now I don't know, like their pictures. I think this would have to be. I think, well, it's not the Kurzberg brothers. It's not Yaron Schmerl. Oded Elner, Omer Mamre. No, he had black hair. I couldn't tell you. It's either Oded Elner or Yaron Schmel. It's one of those. Anyway, she recalled the second male had the weakest recollection of this male. She couldn't really tell the specifics. The third male had dark hair, short, and appeared like straight. I'm willing to bet that's Omar Mamre. He was younger than all of them. He had black hair. She also noticed the white van in which the males were kneeling appeared to be on a box van. A box van. That's a moving company van. It didn't have windows on the side of the van. It reminded of a phone company van. And these are usually rent-a trucks. And what they'll, small moving companies like this, they'll rent either Ryder trucks, or if they want to go cheaper, they'll go to some rent the truck place, and they'll pay the insurance fee and for how many hours they're using the truck. And they also got to pay for gas. She also noticed that the van was not parked perpendicular to the fence. Instead, the front of the van was faced in the southeast direction as male number one knelt on the roof above the front on the passenger side of the vehicle, and he faced the apartment complex. And male number two knelt on the roof above the front, the driver's side of the vehicle, and he faced the apartment complex. Male number three knelt on the rear portion of the vehicle, and he faced New York City. Male number three appeared to be taking photographs and video. How about that? Videos. How come the media didn't report that? A video camera. And male number two was with the World Trade Center in the background. He was taking pictures as well. All the males appeared to be jovial. They smiled and hugged each other and appealed to each other. As the vehicle pulled away, she recorded the license plate, and the license plate was JRJ13Y. After her husband came home from jury duty, she said, "What should I do?" She told him about what she experienced. And he said, and this is, by the way, this is midday. He's told her, call the police. And so she did. She later provided the piece of paper to a FBI agent later on. His name is redacted out of the report. In the FBI report, it also states that an unknown person whose name is redacted, I can't tell you who this person is, heard of the attacks on the World Trade Center and drew his residence to Liberty State Park, New Jersey, to give blood. He arrived at Liberty State Park sometime between 10 to 11 a.m. Approximately, I want to say it's like 20 minutes or 30 minutes later, he observed a truck entering Liberty State Park. The truck looked rather new, and it was either like a 2000 or like a two. I don't drive, so I'm not good at like describing cars to you. Reed, he's a professional truck driver. He would be great for this. I couldn't tell you. So please forgive me. But it was like a model GMC box truck, whatever that looks like. And the guy noticed that the box had rivets with on the inside, which was lined with wood. And I don't know what that means or why that is, but the box truck was approximately was like 15 feet high, 16 to like 18 feet long, and that would be like a good moving truck, small for small moves, right? I would say like similar to a dimensions of a Ryder truck. However, on the side of the box truck, it said Urban Moving in black letters, big black letters. Maria didn't see that on this truck at the parking lot, but this guy, whoever he is, he saw it at Liberty State Park. The truck had no apparent like dents or scratches. You know, moving trucks are really beat up. One thing is that they're always on the road. They're always moving furniture. They're always like, and they're box trucks, so they're not small. So they're hitting things sometimes, moving into a warehouse, backing up, and this truck was brand new. Didn't have any problems with it. It's another strange thing. The truck had backed into a parking space near the pier, about 50 feet to the water, But the guy didn't see anybody leave the truck. And then there was an announcement made that the park was going to close, and the truck left. However, before that, before they announced and the truck left, this guy, whose name is redacted, saw three males approach the vehicle, in which he saw them from a distance of 40 to 45 yards, and described the driver of the van who had a skin tone of Mexican origin. So it's like brown, whether it's light brown, dark brown. He didn't say that. Um, but he didn't look like a mover. That's what the guy told the agent. He wore faded blue jeans, white shirt, short sleeve, black vest, possibly leather, and he wore a black fanny pack. Those were the two reports that went out to the police as well as to an all points bulletin. That means any law enforcement agency in the United States were to be on the lookout for the license plate JRJ L3Y. I'm sorry, JYJ L3Y. Okay, at about 3:30 in the afternoon, a police officer by the name of Scott DiCarlo, who was with a fellow officer named Sergeant Dennis Ravelli, they were stationed near Jersey Park. I want to say it was Jersey Park. No, I'm sorry. Excuse me, because I don't drive. So it was like near Giant Stadium. I see Ecom is here. He can help me with that. I don't know what parkway is near Giant Stadium, but they were there directing traffic because at this time it was 3:30 in the afternoon. Everybody's trying to get out of the city because they closed the bridges and tunnels at this point. And these guys are in Manhattan. They're trying to go home, but they can't now. They're stuck. So he's trying to coordinate traffic, which was almost at a standstill. But the all points bulletin is for a white van, which says Urban Moving Systems. Now, there are news reports from Boston. The name of the station, Boston station, it escapes me. BVZ or something like that. I want to say I don't know the media station, but they were like the first news report to report the urban moving systems early in the day. So Scott DiCarlo is diverting traffic, and he was informed of the dispatch for the national broadcast about a 2000 Chevy van, New Jersey registration JYJ L3Y, with approximately 3 or more individuals. So this guy, Scott DiCarlo, saw a van, a white van, a box van, traveling really slow than the rest of the traffic who's trying to get the hell out of the city, right? And he's moving east towards DiCarlo and Ravelli on the service road that appeared to be a new model Chevy van. And he saw what looked like 2 occupants. Now, he informed Sergeant Ravelli, the officer who's in charge of the scene, he's sergeant, that it matched the possibility of the vehicle, but he needed to see the license plate. So he approached the vehicle and he didn't observe a front license plate, which is really strange because moving company vans have to be registered and they have to have a visible license plate. This did not. So he went to the rear of the vehicle and he saw what looked to be JRJ L3Y. And he said that the 1-letter difference in the plate could have been a mistake and requested a confirmation when he used his radio transmission. And the operator came back and said that the transmission rate matched the broadcast. So DiCarlo goes to the driver's side window and he requested the driver to stop and get out of the vehicle, but he didn't get out. He was asked a couple more times, get out of your vehicle. Nothing. Ravelli goes on the passenger side and his gun's already out. These guys ain't getting out of the van. There's an all points bulletin about 3 guys in a van celebrating the attacks. And they didn't even get out the van. Okay. However, Ravelli makes the first move because he saw the passenger side guy fumbling in his fanny pack. So Ravelli moved the passenger, just threw him right out of the van. And he threw another passenger from the side of the van with minor assistance from DiCarlo. I mean, this guy, Yarmacone. He's only known by his last name, Yarmacone. I don't know his first name because it's redacted. Because more police came on the side. Now, the other 2 occupants were moved by DiCarlo and placed on the grass off to the shoulder and out of the road. And it was 5 individuals, 5 guys. And they read their Miranda rights. The police moved the van to the side of the service road so that the traffic could go through. And everybody's looking and they're like, oh, everyone's worried. So they're starting to throw like debris at them, spit at them, and yell at them. And the cops have, like, now there's a scene going on. The van is driven off to headquarters and was requested to be immediately notified by the county bomb squad and the FBI of the situation. We'll get to that in a minute. So DiCarlo and Ravelli are transported to the state police facilities inside the Meadowlands Sports Complex, in which state troopers await the arrival of the FBI. The occupants are Steven Kurzberg, who was driving, and he gave his address as 100 Lawrence, Brooklyn, as well as an address called Pichkua, Israel. He was wearing blue jeans, torn knees, and a gray and black shirt. The other person was Yared Shmuel. He gave his address as 1345 Drexel Avenue, apartment number 6. He also gave another address, and we're going to get to this in a minute because it's important. Miami Beach, Florida, area code 33139. That's really important. And to some of you who know 9/11 a little bit better than most, you'll know what I'm talking about. Paul Kurzberg, the brother of Sivan Kurzberg, the driver, gave no address, but he was wearing a pink shirt and blue jeans. Oded Elner gave no address, but he was holding an American Express card. The number of the card was 375518092154895. And the last male, the 5th male, was Omer Gabriel Mamari. He gave an address of 509 West 212th Street, Manhattan, New York. His only belongings were a pack of cigarettes and black sunglasses. DiCarlo then contacts headquarters, and that is confirmed that the plate on the vehicle was, in fact, a plate that the FBI had stated in the broadcast. However, what's important here is this. When DiCarlo is removing Oded, the driver, Sivan Kurzberg, as he's forcibly removing him out, Sivan Kurzberg tells him, "We are Israeli. We are not your problem. The Palestinians are your problem. Your problems are our problems." Now, everybody makes a big deal of this. But It's really unusual to say this in the context in which it was said. Now, this is something that you would say if you were having a heated argument between, say, foreign policy matters in Israel or the Palestine Israeli conflict. Not as you're being forcibly exited by a cop out of a van on the day in which the World Trade Center is attacked. Really unusual manner of speech. And yeah, my antenna is going straight up. However, be that as it said, um, Oded Elder also had a passport. Now, what's really remarkable is this: is that um, Oded Elner, he had the fanny pack, but he was also in possession of a white sock that was filled with $4,700 in cash. Now, let me talk about this issue right here too, because moving company drivers and employees usually have cash on them, because their customers pay cash. But at 3:30 in the afternoon, you didn't make that money in one day. Another incriminating item was they found a map in the truck. And on the map was highlighted in marker, I think it was yellow or red marker, Doric Towers, the World Trade Center, and I think it was the Battery Tunnel. Don't quote me on the Battery Tunnel. Could be off. But it was Doric Towers and the World Trade Center. Now, that's really suspicious as heck. Also, all of these guys, all five of them, had plane tickets to leave the country to South America and all different places too. It was almost like these guys were scattering all over the place in South America. Unbelievable. Okay, so they're in detention by the FBI. The FBI gets to East Rutherford, but then they're transferred over to, I believe it was an FBI facility in Jersey. Later on in the afternoon, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would tell this to the media. We are benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers in Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq. The paper in which was reported was the Ma'ariv, and that he reportedly added that the event swung American public opinion in our favor. Now, what was happening is, I have to go back a little bit, was that the Israeli-Palestinian issue was basically ignored by the Bush administration. Bush Jr., as well as his father, Bush Sr., were not really key allies to Israel. Yes, he had a cabinet, neoconservative cabinet, of dual citizens that were favored to Israel, like Richard Pearl, Douglas Feith, Paul Wolfowitz. But their issue was basically the United States first, Zionist Israel second. But they could work in conjunction. I'm talking about foreign policy, nothing else. Another strange comment, and that's coming from Benjamin Netanyahu. The police and the FBI the FBI goes and interviews Maria again on September 12th. And she gives him the piece of paper that she wrote down the license plate on. The Bergen Record, which is a publication in New Jersey, reports this. And I'm going to read you, quote, so I won't get this, you're getting this straight. Quote, the next day, it will be reported that bomb sniffing dogs reacted as if they had detected explosives in the van that was confiscated by Scott DiCarlo and Dennis Ravelli. An investigator high up in the Bergen County law enforcement hierarchy will say in 2006 that there are maps of the city in the car that in which certain places were highlighted, like I said before. It looked like they're hooked in with this, referring to the 9/11 attacks. It looked like they knew what was going to happen. It looked like they knew what was going to happen when they were at Liberty State Park, end quote. And that was coming from the second report of that guy whose name is redacted. And I have to give it to you like really straight up because I'm trying to give it to you in a chronological order of these reports. I don't want to keep jumping back and forth and get you confused. So I want you to take this straight, like an arrow as it was coming. And that's how I wrote the article on Medium. Now, the FBI go and interview the residents of Doric Towers to see if anybody else saw these people. And I'll read you the report. September 13th, 2001, a resident in Doric Towers was interviewed and that sometime around noon, soon after midnight on September 10th, she stated that she saw one of those dancing Israelis. It's a woman in the complex. And so now they have the pictures of these guys, the FBI, and they're showing it to the residents. And the report states that the canvass was conducted to determine whether anybody residing at the apartment could identify any of the 5 individuals who they arrested appearing in 2 pages of photocopied photographs shown to them. And the copy was shown to the interviewees, including all the 5 people that were arrested. The woman that was interviewed said she saw the individuals identified as number 5. Now, I don't know who number 5 is because we don't have the photographs. And she said that he was within the apartment at around 3 p.m. I'm sorry, I said midnight. Forgive me. It was 3 p.m. on September 10th, the day before. And she interviewed the individual who was observing entering the elevator in the lobby along with another individual with whom he was talking to in Spanish. So she's basically describing one of the Israelis that was detained speaking Spanish. Would that make sense as to why they're going to South America? You get what I'm trying to get you at here? There's more. The manner in which he was talking to seemed to like he knew the other person. The second man was not within the pictures presented, so he was unknown. But in the report later on, because I put this in chronological order, I found out that the person number 5, which this woman saw, was Sivan Kurzberg, the driver of the freaking van. On September 14, 2001, a personal notebook in a leather case, which belonged to one of the 5 Israelis that were detained, had a number of incriminating evidence and numbers of other of other moving companies. The companies were Classic International Movers, Max Movers, White Glove Movers, and I think Moishi Movers was actually Ryan Dawson spoke about this. It was either Max Movers or Moishi Movers, which was another name for urban moving systems. Can't tell you. One of those things. But there were other moving companies in New Jersey, in Florida, the East Coast. Now, that's for the dancing Israelis. Now I'm going to give you the names of two people you probably never heard of. Now, for those who watch my channel and follow my work, you're going to know who I'm talking about because I do mention them. DJ Thermal Detonator mentions these guys. Very few people do. So I have to go back to September 11th now because it would make a little bit more sense. So on September 11th, the Pennsylvania State Police detained a yellow box truck upon the request of Newark and inspected the vehicle and determined that the vehicle's two occupants who were working for urban moving systems. Now, these guys' names are Roy Barak and Modi Butbul. If you never heard these names, I don't blame you because the media is not reporting this. And I'll tell you why, is because I think these two guys are much more important than the other five guys. The reason why is because I'm going to speculate as to what I think they did. It's not a fact that they did it. But when I read you why they're in New Jersey and Pennsylvania is really a huge red flag. Pennsylvania State Police runs the license plate and it's reported back to Urban Moving Systems in Weehawken, New Jersey, and they called Dominick Suter. And they talk about why the vehicle is in Pennsylvania. Why is there a Pennsylvania truck? Urban Moving Systems. Nothing's in the truck. No furniture, nothing. Dominick Suter, the manager of Urban Moving Systems, basically says, I don't know why they're there. What? You don't know why they're there? Huge red flag. Now, according to Roy Barak and Modi Butbul, they were supposed to complete a moving job in a different part of the country. However, when they look through the truck, there's nothing in it. Similarly, also in that afternoon, Newark also received reports from law enforcement officials in New England that a second vehicle displaying markings for urban moving systems was noted to have stopped somewhere between New York and Boston on September 11, 2001, for the purpose of asking for directions to Boston, Massachusetts. And they were Israeli nationals. Well, what's in Boston, Massachusetts? Logan Airport. Why else are they going there? Well, I'll tell you why. The police let them go. Nothing incriminating, nothing about them. That's not the end of the story. On September 12th, the truck is seen by Pennsylvania State Police. This time coming back into New Jersey. So they were going, I think where they were going was Ohio or Chicago. It was either Ohio or Chicago. However, the truck is coming back to New Jersey on September 12th. Pennsylvania State Police, not the same police, Pennsylvania State Police pulled the truck over because, there was a prior Beyond the Lookout truck for Urban Moving Systems International. So they pulled these guys out. They said, what's going on here? Who do you work for? Urban Moving Systems. So they call Dominick Suter once again. Hey, did you know you have two guys that were coming out of a move? The truck is empty, by the way. Coming back from a move. The truck is empty. So Dominick Suter gives an even more revealing answer to the state police. He says, due to the prior day's events, we had no clients outside of New Jersey. And that's a direct quote. That's what Suter told them. No clients out of the state. The cop, incredulously at the answer, says, well, how can you explain these guys and what they're doing there? And Dominick Suter said this: I don't know. I can't explain it. They're detained. The problem is that the where they were traveling, which was an interstate that was used, in which they were traveling. I'm going to try and bring up the interstate that they were using. I want to say, if Reed is still here, he'd probably know the interstate. Let's say it's like 30. Look like Interstate 80 or 30. That was the interstate they were using. And guess what? That interstate leads into Shanksville, Pennsylvania. What happened there? Well, Flight 93 crashed there. Now, that seems a little bit odd, a little bit too close to home for me. And why do I think this is important? Now, what I'm about to tell you is speculation. This is a theory I'm working on at the current moment, one of a couple. But I don't think Ziad Jarrah got on that plane at Flight 93. I think he was an Israeli mole. And I think what happened was these two guys basically drove by. They didn't have a client. They drove by Interstate 80. And because the debris field was blocked off for a couple of miles, these guys basically threw Ziad Jarrah's passport and other items, including a business card to his uncle, Assam Al Jarrah, which had an address for Ramzi bin Al Shib in Meyer Straub, Germany, written on the back of it. Wow. Right? That's what I think happened. Take that with a grain of salt. I'm just speculating there because that's what I think these two guys did. There's no evidence they did this at all. However, what the hell were they doing on Interstate 80 when they didn't have a client? And, that's something that Dominick Suter said, their own manager of the company. Just wanted to throw that out there. What they found in the truck was reported in an FBI report on September 14, 2001. 2 Israeli passports, a German passport, a camera, an international student identity card valid from September 20th, September of 2000 to December of 2001. Itinerary tickets. This is where they were going. One ticket was from Tel Aviv, Israel, to the United States. They were going to go out of JFK on September 12th, from JFK to Athens, Greece, then to Tel Aviv. That was one ticket. Second ticket, departing JFK, going to Tel Aviv, Argentina. A notebook was found with separate torn out pages for numbers of credit card companies, janitorial services, and other moving companies. The moving companies I told you about earlier. A small diary written in Hebrew. A telephone directory in a leather case. The numbers are redacted. Probably nothing. A business card of attorney at law dealing in immigration and real estate. The address is 350 Fifth Avenue. One of the agents on September 14th, 2001, went back to Doric Towers and interviewed somebody there. And I'm going to read you quote for quote, word for word, what the person said, so I won't take it out of context. Okay? It's coming from the FBI report. On the morning of 9/11, redacted, the resident, was painting an apartment, redacted, less than 5 minutes after the first plane hit the North Tower. He goes up to the apartment and informs another resident of the disaster. They stand up from the painting and the baseboard to look out the window and notice three men taking video, not photographs, video, and as well as photographs from atop of the roof of the parking garage adjoining Doric Towers. And he also sees the white utility van and the man on top of the roof of the van and next to it. There were no other people in the parking lot at the time. He also believed this occurred between 9 a.m. and 9:10 a.m. after the first plane hits. The resident exits the apartment and sees that the men and both of the white and brown van were gone. There was another brown van in the parking lot. Bet you never heard that either. And he said he didn't see any writing on the van or any windows or anything like that. He only saw three guys, just like Maria saw three guys. Union City Detective Bureau interviews another resident who lived at Doric Towers and reported that the three men were light-skinned, clean-shaven, and she saw them taking pictures and video. Another resident seen him taking video of the event. Now, years later, everyone in this room knows that, oh, yeah, we know about the pictures, but we don't know anything about the damn video. Jeez, where did that video go? Right? Okay, so another interview of a resident stated that he saw a white van parked in the parking lot at 8 a.m. That's well before the World Trade Center was even in. Didn't see anybody outside of the van and couldn't see who was in the van. It was in the apartment. Another resident whose name is redacted also says at about 8:10 a.m., they see a white box truck in the parking lot. Again, that's two residents who basically saw a white box truck with no markings at the parking lot well before the first plane is hit. The only problem is that we don't know if it's the same truck or not. My guess is it is. But they didn't see anybody in the truck. That's another problem. Were they in the truck waiting? Or were they in the apartment somewhere? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. So, be careful when making implications. I know that, this is a sensitive subject. That's why I'm talking to you in this manner. I want you to be careful, especially when we're implying Israel here. because there's so much disinformation about this subject. And there's so much in the way of like disinformation people like Christopher Bolin. He's a huge anti Israeli guy, anti Zionist. He hides behind the flag. I don't trust this guy at all. He's a no planer, no hijacker. He knows what he's talking about in some respects regarding foreign policy, regarding Israel and the United States. But then he mixes up the real fringe conspiracies. You know what that does? It basically will eliminate you from a rational conversation or be taken serious because everybody knows that in any serious discussion, Bolin is not to be trusted. And what he's trying to do is paint you, the careful researcher, the responsible researcher that you are, and paint you as an irresponsible researcher. And that's what I think he's doing. So please, in regards to this with Israeli intelligence, and there's so very little factual information regarding this. It's really hard to not want to do more with it. But you can only do what you can with the evidence available to you. That's why I'm imploring you, please, just be as honest investigator as you can be. Okay. Now, on September 15th, 2001, these guys are now being processed and looking into their backgrounds. Newark division of the FBI basically finds out that Sivan and Paul Kurzberg had more than just basic training in the military. These guys had intelligence backgrounds. Fast forward, let's go to Roy Barak and Modi Butbul. Who are those guys? Well, those guys were real good. Basically, they had a much in-depth background in intelligence, signals intelligence. Roy Barak was. Modi Butbul would later serve in the Israeli IDF. He was killed by Hezbollah in 2006. However, the reports are coming out that there's Israelis being detained, but nothing big. The media is reporting about Osama bin Laden and nothing about the foreign intelligence rings from Saudi Arabia and Israel. Either they don't know anything about it at this point, which I can't say that I can't blame them. Nobody really knew about anything at this point. However, they're detained by the FBI because they basically aren't telling the truth. And they refuse to take lie detector tests. Now, it's their right not to take lie detector tests. And lie detector tests really don't prove much. They're not admissible in court. They're admissible on Maury Povich. But in court, they really aren't used as like to prove innocent or guilt. Anybody can get cold feet. An innocent person can make a mistake. He's nervous under, harsh questioning. So I can understand why they didn't want to take it. But the FBI starts interviewing people from Urban Moving Systems, the employees there. And what they found out was pretty illuminating. According to one employee, one of the Israelis that were working there told him, quote, "Give us 20 years and we'll take over your media and destroy your country." Yeah, you get racist Israelis that don't like America, and it happens. Just like you get racist Arabs that hate Israelis. I mean, I could play this game all day with you. I mean, give you quotes, death to Israel and shit, right? So don't take that too much. But take it into account, because if these guys really were Israeli intelligence and they didn't tell the United States about an upcoming attack, then that comment would make a little bit more sense as to why it's being said. Anyway, so they started interviewing the employees, and they found out more about the other moving companies. Based on information provided by the Miami division on September 15, 2001, Newark, who was detaining the employees, found out that Miami FBI had detained 4 employees of Classic International Movers, which is a New Jersey based company, and was believed by Miami to have been used by one of the alleged hijackers. Now, this is not true because in the days pursuing the 9/11 attacks, there was a lot of the names the FBI was getting wrong. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the name of the person who is being moved by Classic International Movers. And it wasn't a hijacker, but he was suspected of being a hijacker. I'm actually looking for it just to tell you. I can't find it. Why didn't I have this available right away? It's important, isn't it? Trying to look for that document I had. Where is it? I am having trouble. Now I look like an idiot. I thought I had it. Is anybody in the room? Let me take a look. No. I forgot the guy's name now. I can't. Why do I don't know where the. Boo. I ain't going to look forever. But the person they moved was suspected of being a hijacker and he wasn't. And yeah, I can't find it now. I'll find it when I don't need it. But they moved this person, Classic International Movers. He was not a hijacker. He was suspected of being a hijacker. And a lot of people get this wrong and say, yeah, they moved one of the hijackers. But no, it wasn't. And I it's a article, and for the likes of me, I have to apologize. I can't find it. Damn. I wish I could find it. I usually have right here. Ah, I got it. His name was Adnan Bukhari. Now, the only person I know that talks about this, and he's even done an article about it, is DJ Thermal Detonator. So the guy's name is Adnan Bukhari. That's the guy they moved from Florida. By the way, Adnan Bukhari basically lived next door to a person named Abdul Aziz Rahman Alamari. If that sounds familiar, that sounds eerily familiar to a hijacker of American Airlines 11, Abdul Aziz Alamari. This is where the media gets it wrong. Oh, the living hijackers, right? No, the guy's name is Abdul Rahman Alamari. Incidentally, he's also from Saudi Arabia. Even more, he's a pilot. Uh, what are the odds? We have a hijacker on board 11, and then we have a pilot living in Florida who has the same name. Similar anyway. Arabs have similar names. Okay. Just wanted to share that with you. I'm sorry it took so long. Anyway, so they arrest these 4 guys from Classic International Movers, and all 4 of them had served in the Israeli military. Okay. Now there's a big network we're seeing, not just with one moving company, but a number of them. Now, remember what I told you about what's his name having a Florida license as well? You remember that when I mentioned this earlier about Yaron Schmel having an address in Florida when the police arrested him and found out that he had an address in Florida? Well, he had an address in Florida, which was basically not too far from where Muhammad Atta and Marwan al Shehi had resided in, which was the town was called Hollywood, Florida. Now, if that's not ringing any bells with you, I don't know what will. But in order to prove my assertions about this, there is an infamous memo that a lot of people basically are not aware of. And I can understand because it's not really made public. And for those who are ardent students, I know a lot of um, you are familiar with the Gerald Shea Memorandum. If not, I'm going to make that available to you in the descriptions below the video. Um, Now, the Gerald Shea memo, who is this guy? Well, he's a lawyer from San Isbito, California, and he wrote a memo called the Gerald Shea Memo. Um, Israeli surveillance of the future hijackers and FBI suspects in the September 11th attacks and their failure to give us adequate warning, the need for a public inquiry. The Gerald Shea memo was written by a guy who's a retired lawyer out of San Isbo, California, who, out of his own dime, basically did a report based on the police reports of another Israeli ring, which was much bigger than the moving ring, and these were the art students. Now, a lot of fringe conspiracy theorists get this wrong. And they say, well, no, there was an Israeli ring inside the World Trade Center. That's not true. They were an Austrian group named Gelatin B. There's 5 of them, men and women. Yes, very unusual people, dumb art. And I know Rebecca Roth does this. And she shows you the photograph of the guy turned around. You've probably seen it. And you see these boxes called BB88. Yeah, well, guess what? Those boxes are from a company called Little Fuse. And they're a company which sells bus bar fuses. So because a lot of the World Trade Center was under renovation at the time, and a lot of these offices were empty, they were doing renovation work. And so these bus bars they sold, the boxes were given to them. Boxes were empty. They were using it for their ridiculous art, for which a lot of the Europeans are known for. Sorry for you Europeans and your art. Some of it's strange. But they did a book, and the book is a lot of money. And I think there's only 2 left on Amazon. But if you have $750, you could buy the book, Gelatin B. And it details art. Years later, in 2010, Gelatin B actually did a video on YouTube. It's still up, and they called it the B thing. And you could look at it, and they describe what they did at the World Trade Center. These guys aren't Israelis; they're from Austria, actually, the men and women. But what the fringe conspiracies do, they make an error. The Israeli art student ring is not 5 men and women; it's over 250 men and women. And what these people were doing was much bigger than the people what they were doing in the World Trade Center. And it really was it is the biggest Israeli ring in the United States. So the Israeli art student scam, as it was known by, in which you had basically 2 guys and a girl, and it's usually beautiful. Israeli women are beautiful. Some of them are just even the Israeli IDF women. I don't know. Some of you guys in here probably seen pictures. They're really beautiful women. My God, some of them like wow, they could be models. Anyway, they would have this woman and 2 guys, and they would always go as teams. And you had a third guy who would basically wait in the car. Then they would approach people in their homes, and they would attempt to sell them paintings and frames for excessive prices. The paintings are representatives of as original, valuable art by up and coming art students, but they're cheap and mass produced. And they were mass produced in China, by the way. It was later found out that they were mass produced in China. So, but what's really interesting is that these weren't just regular people they were going to. They were using, they were going to the homes of the Drug Enforcement Agency, the FBI, the Justice Department, Immigration and Naturalization Services, even some people within the State Department. Specific people. And where were they going? New York, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Detroit, Texas, California, Nevada, Utah, Chicago, Florida. It was a huge network, the biggest Israeli spy ring in the United States history. And from the year 2000 to 2002, there were hundreds of reports. In fact, in March of 2001, the Office of Security of the Drug Enforcement Administration issued a 61-page report describing it as approximately 125 or more of foreign nationals, which were to penetrate several DEA field offices around the country in the continental United States. Many of the individuals, and I'll read you the quote, many of these individuals also visited the residences of numerous DEA officials and other agencies' facilities, not just residences, facilities of the employees of thereof. The DEA reports states that these incidents have occurred since at the beginning of 2000 and have continued to the present. These were ongoing activities in the summer of 2001 and to the date of September 11, 2001, in which 140 of them were arrested. And guess what? Every single one were here on an overextended student visa. Does that sound familiar? Because that's exactly all of the Israelis from classic international movers and urban moving systems all had extended or expired student Israeli visas, US visas. All of them. Not most, all of them. At the same time, there is another ring of Israelis, and this is a drug ring. And this is, I want to say, take this with a grain of salt. They may have had nothing to do with it, but what drugs do, if you're really interested in how intelligent, foreign intelligence and domestic intelligence, when they do covert operations, they can't ask money. In other words, the CIA can't go to the Senate Judiciary Committee or Appropriations Committee and say, hey, can you give us $30 million? We want to overthrow the president in Argentina. Of course, they can't do that, right? So what do? Drugs, the black arts. The CIA, the only reason why, one of the reasons why they were in Afghanistan and stationed at Helmand Province, which is the second largest poppy field acre on Earth next to the Golden Triangle. What do you think they were there for? To stop the Taliban from burning any more of the crops, because that's what Mullah Omar was doing in the year 2000. Maybe that's another reason why they went to Afghanistan in the first place. Not nothing to do with Al Qaeda. Probably just to destroy the Taliban, stop burning the crops. The real war on drugs was coming from the Taliban at one point, not the CIA. Anyway, the drug ring was run by a guy named Jacob Orgod, the biggest ecstasy dealer in the United States. He was also an ex-bodyguard of a known madam, and you probably heard the name Heidi Fleiss. He went by the name Cookie. Look up the name Jacob Cookie Orgad. Huge, the biggest ecstasy dealer ring in the late 1990s to the early 2000s. Now, if you want to try, try connect that, I can't. But maybe, just maybe, through the sale of his drugs, that's who pays for the intelligence operatives inside the United States. Speculation. Does it make sense for you guys? Maybe. I know there's 18 people now in the room, but can you understand where I'm going with it? To pay for the Israeli intelligence operatives inside the United States, they have to use drug money to do it. Okay. So the Israeli art student ring, which was basically broken up in 2002, the DEA report actually reports it in March of 2001. And then we have the DEA stating that it suggested that the operatives in the art student ring were also tracking the 9/11 hijackers. Now, I just interviewed Robbie Martin for my Dark and Out broadcast, And we had a great discussion. It was a long discussion. We talked about this because he's working on information regarding Israelis in Florida, and some of them were from the art student ring, as well as the moving companies who were living precariously close to the members of the Hamburg cell, Mohammed Atta, Mohammed al Sheikh. The DA insinuates that they think that they knew the attack was going to take place and that they were involved with Israeli organized crime as well. Der Spiegel, which is a German weekly, and if anybody, and I mean any one of you people in this room, want to read about 9/11, you go to Der Spiegel, one of the best 9/11 resources on the planet, but you just have to translate it into English because it's in German. And boy, do they make blockbuster stories. Really interesting stuff. So they posted an article, and which one of them was entitled "Next Door to Mohammed Atta," and that they stated that Israeli intelligence from both the moving company and the art student ring were living next to Mohammed Atta in Hollywood, Florida, and Marwan al-Sheikh. And that some of the Israeli art students lived for a period of time in Hollywood, Florida. Justin Raimondo, the late Justin Raimondo of antiwar.com, he also posted this in 2001, well before anyone else was doing it. The DEA breaks up the drug ring in 2002 and gone. These guys are deported out of the country. What happened to urban moving systems? Well, according to unnamed FBI agents, and they wanted to keep these guys, they were held in detention for 71 days. They finally took lie detector tests. They failed them, but really doesn't mean much. Like I said before, lie detector tests are not admissible, but they weren't truthful to these people, to the FBI at all. And so what happened was, through the pressure of two unnamed New York senators, with Alan Dershowitz acting as a mediator, they're deported out of the country by INS. The FBI didn't want to release them because in the FBI report itself, the person writing the report, the agent, is not known for the whole FBI report. There's a question posed in the report. What was the reasoning for detaining the 5 Israeli nationals? And if it was just, looking into their background, it wouldn't take much to write. However, the answer was illuminating. And what was the answer? We don't know, because one whole page and a half is completely redacted. A simple no would be just fine. So, why is it that it would take a page and a half of redaction to answer a simple question of why they're detaining 5 Israeli nationals? Why? Later on, it is asserted by the FBI that they think these guys knew much more than what they shared with the FBI. Roy Barak and Modi Butbul, they stood a little bit shorter, but they were deported out of the country as well. No charges. What happened to Dominick Suter? Interesting story. Now I'll share it with you. When the FBI asked him to come in one time, he did. But they asked him to come in a second time, and this is when they arrested Roy Barack and Modi Bhupal. The jig was up. The five men, Sivan, Paul Kurzberg, and the rest, and now Roy Barack and Modi Bhupal, they were all arrested, detained. Dominick Suter fled the country, left the company behind. Didn't take anything with him. Whole warehouse full of office furniture of all the clients, which probably dates back weeks, if not a month. Backloaded. John Miller of 2020 did a great special report, which you can't find on the internet, Bailey, and basically did a video report in which he went inside the warehouse. He gained access inside the warehouse. And you could see it on camera. The phone had like 99 voicemail of all the clients probably asking, where's my stuff? It's all in the warehouse. All these people's furniture, stuff, phone, computers, everything. This guy just hightailed it out of here. He's gone. Now we can't ask him for anything. What a consistent pattern we're seeing. Foreign intelligence ring using a moving front company, as well as posing as art students, and everyone's deported before we even get to interview them in depth. What the hell's going on here? Well, INS basically forced the issue, and it came from up high. And the pressure basically came from a number of individuals and two unnamed New York senators. And I can't tell you who they are because their names are redacted in the FBI report. Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Sheikh rented an apartment in Atlantic Boulevard, apartment 122 in Coral Springs, Florida. Living just 38 miles away from this apartment was Yaron Shmuel. I ask you, good people in this room, what in the hell was he doing down there, living next to these guys 38 miles away? It's really not that far. It's a good amount. Close by, driving distance. So what's to make of the pictures that were taken? Well, an agent from the FBI basically states that in the photographs from the camera showing that there was a green lighter shown in one of the photographs. One of them was holding up. The camera that they got was a Canon EOS Rebel 2000. The video, by the way, guess what the FBI says? It doesn't exist. It's right there in the FBI report, none redacted. There was no video recovered. We come to the conclusion the video doesn't exist, even though the residents from Doric Towers state, and there was a number of them stating that they took video. Well, wouldn't that prove that they were there beforehand? Because that would make sense for the two residents who saw a box truck, a white box truck, in the parking lot at 8 a.m. Yeah, a lot of coincidences, if you ask me. Now, There was an incident I have to bring up before we ended. Interesting incident I wanted to mention. It's in the FBI report. This is coming from Mount Holly, New Jersey. On August 14th of 2001 at approximately 10:30 p.m., two men were stopped and found to be in possession of a Ryder truck, which was overdue and reported stolen. I'm reading directly from the report. Both were taken into custody and held at the Burlington County Jail. The next day, at approximately 4:55 a.m., two individuals appeared at the county jail and paid for the bail of these two individuals. These two individuals were also in possession of another rental truck, which was reported stolen. Can't make this up. They were arrested and charged with possession of stolen property. Now there's four of them. Incredibly. Now I know you didn't hear this story because nobody really makes it public. These individuals were identified as Israeli nationals operating a moving company called Urban Moving Systems. The statements given to the arresting officers were inconsistent and didn't make sense. All four individuals provided a home address, Coral Springs, Florida. Are we ringing any bells yet? Should be. This information, along with two briefcases in their possession at the time of their arrest, are being provided to the New York case agent. The circumstances and pedigree of these individuals identified seem to mirror the profile of the individuals identified in captioned matter. It should also be noted that the initial traffic stop was made at the intersection of Route 40 of 541 and Holly Lane, which is approximately a half a mile away from the former or current, at that time, police commissioner Bernard Kerik. Are we really ringing bells now? Because Bernard Kerik travels to Israel in August of 2001. Why? Under the pretext of asking the Israeli intelligence how to stop the flow of ecstasy to New York. I'm not making this up, folks. This is actually reported news. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. That's in the FBI report as well. On July 10, 2003, according to the FBI report, this is what the FBI concluded on. Newark investigation found no factual or substantive circumstantial information to corroborate eyewitness accounts that the five Israeli nationals videotaped the attacks, in direct contradiction to what was told to them in the days after 9/11. Newark investigation also found no factual or substantial circumstantial information to indicate the five Israeli nationals were on top of a parking garage videotaping prior to the first hijacked aircraft. Numerous circumstantial facts strongly support the five individual statements that they traveled to the roof of the parking lot after learning of the attacks. Physical evidence found in the possession of the five Israeli nationals, in conjunction with statements made by them during numerous interviews over several months, indicated that redacted is redacted, specifically admitted to being employed by the long redaction. There's a long redaction there. Newark's investigation found no factual evidence to suggest that they were operating an overt or covert capacity in the United States. Of course not. Of course not. Dominick Suter just basically just up and leaves his own company because I don't want to be in this business anymore. Everyone involved with the moving companies of Urban Moving Systems, Classic and International Movers are basically deported out of the country for their own good. Even though Roy Barak and Modi Bupul told the FBI and Pennsylvania State Police, we're moving a client. Meanwhile, there's no furniture in the truck. And their manager, Dominick Suter, basically says, I don't know what they're doing there. We don't have a client outside of New Jersey. As well as having received $655,000 a month prior to September 11th from a federally funded grant for a small moving company. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, I don't know what to say. That's what Newark FBI basically states. That the Israeli nationals from Classic International Movers, from Urban Moving Systems, were basically people, students from Israel who overstayed their expired temp student visas. Even though that the 5 Israelis that were arrested, the dancing Israelis as they're called, were uncooperative, lied to the police in the beginning about where they were on 9/11, didn't want to get out of the truck, didn't want to cooperate, had maps of certain areas highlighted, like the World Trade Center and Doric Towers. Ah. And then you have the art student ring going to the DEA, the FBI. Oh, we're just selling cheap art to you. $250 of them arrested, detained, deported. Can't investigate what you don't have. Water under the bridge. And then when Carl Cameron of Fox News, surprisingly enough, did an expose about Amdocs and the signals intelligence ring regarding the Israelis, which was supposed to be a 10-part series, after the third part, he basically is told by his editors, you can't continue. And anybody who wants to talk about this issue is labeled an anti Semite. Because heaven forbid, an ally of the strong in the United States is spying inside the United States who lives precariously too close to members who are involved with the hijacking of 4 airliners and didn't tell the FBI or the State Department about what they were doing. Because that's what allies do. Now, this is not a charge on Israel as a whole. I'm charging their government, the Likud party, the Zionists, and their intelligence ring. I'm not condemning the people. And I was hope that you people in this room that are still with me, you wouldn't do the same. Is it anti-Semitic to call out the country for what they do to the Palestinians, as well as what they're doing in Syria? No, it's not. That's what a humanist would do. And keep doing it. That's what I do with my latest news reports. But do it carefully, because it's your name on the line. And if you start slinging fringe conspiracy theories involving Israel, you know what will happen to you? You'll get canceled. And I know some good names that did get canceled on YouTube. And that's the problem. Is when you start espousing fringe conspiracy theories with Israel, that's what gets you in trouble. But if you're reporting just the facts, and that's all you need to report is just the facts. And if you're going to report on your thoughts make sure that you say that to the people in which you're addressing it to. Be careful. Be honest. We need more honesty on the internet and in 9/11 in general. And I can't tell you, some of you people in this room, I sound like a broken record when I tell you that, I like the fact that you follow my work, but I want you to open your channels, and I want you to become leaders. And I don't want you to become followers. It's nice that you follow my channel and look at the stuff I'm posting, but I want you to do videos and I want you to do written work. That's what I want you to do because we need more leaders. We don't need more followers. All right. Now, I'll take if you have questions. I'll take that. I mean, wow, there's a lot of comments. I figured this would be a popular episode, actually. Um, uh, 19 people. I think that's the most I've had for a live discussion. I saw 26 at one point. I was shocked. 26 people watching me. Yeah, no, hey, thank you. The inspiration comes from you, not from me. I only do this because there's people who are interested. Who were the senators? I see Chip Walker. Who were the senators? Unknown at the time. Now, I tried to look at senators inside New York at the time in the year 2001. Chuck Schumer was one. Hillary Clinton was another. Um, man, Schumer has strong ties with APAC. I would submit that was one of them. If I were a betting man, he's one, but I couldn't tell you the other. I don't know. So I couldn't tell you, but I'm convinced Chuck Schumer was one. Um, give us some of the California cells. You're talking about the Arabs. I'll probably do another episode of that, a live video of that. I'm actually going to be doing an interview tomorrow on Colleen Rowley, the former Minneapolis field agent who was involved with the Zacharias Moussaoui case, as well as being involved with counterterrorism for a long time. I'm going to be interviewing her tomorrow. I'll post that tomorrow as well. Do you suspect Nick Berg of being an Israeli agent of some sort, which there was more evidence than pure speculation? DJ Thermal Detonator is going to be doing a film on Nick Berg. And to tell you the truth, I have not done really deep research on that guy at all. And there is a ton of questions about that guy. I couldn't tell you. I can't wait to see the film. So I don't know. I don't want to, lead you down a dead end or, speculate as a form of evidence. I think that's irresponsible. So I'd rather just say I don't know because I really don't know. Um, so I'd rather not tell you any speculative ideas because it's not going to be helpful for you. I want what I want to give you is what I know. I don't want to give you my beliefs. Anybody could believe, but what do you know? Because what you know, you can act on. One of my favorite quotes of all time is written by a former JFK researcher and forensic psychologist, E. Martin Schatz. And the quote is belief versus knowledge. And I'll read you the short quote. I won't read you the full quote. It's my favorite quote of all time. And I think it's in this file, the quote itself, or I could just Google it because I really think it's important. And it's important for you. Um, I'll look it up on the internet. E. Martin Schatz. It's a great quote. I really want to share with you. It would mean much to me because I try to live up to this quote every day in my research of 9/11. Quote, it is so important to understand that one of the primary means of immobilizing the American people politically today is to hold them in a state of confusion in which anything can be believed, but nothing can be known. Nothing of significance, that is. And the American people are more than willing to be held in this state because to know the truth, as opposed to only believing the truth, is to face an awful terror and to no longer be able to evade responsibility. It is precisely in moving from belief to knowledge that the citizen moves from irresponsibility to responsibility, from helplessness and hopelessness to action, with the ultimate aim of being empowered and confident in one's own rational powers. End quote. That's the difference between belief and knowledge. You can't go to court with belief. I believe Israel is behind 9/11. What's the proof? What's the evidence? There's very little evidence right now, but there is smoke. And where there's smoke, there's fire. We just have to be patient in regards to what the future will bring in revealing more evidence. And that's what I try to come across as to you. And that everything that I produce, whether it's written, video work, my podcasts, when I upload files and documents on my WordPress, is for you. And what I'm trying to do is trying to give you evidence that you can use. I could give you belief and speculation. I probably would be a bigger channel if I did that. If I basically just said 9/11 is an inside job, Israel's involved, Benjamin Netanyahu is evil. Yeah, he is evil. But it would be irresponsible of me to tell you that they are the planners and they're behind 9/11. They're not. There's no evidence to show this yet. There may never be evidence to show this. But what we do know is this: they know more than what they told the FBI, because what I told you in this video was coming straight out of the horse's mouth. The FBI's own reports. This is the only evidence we have right now. This is it. And even that is redacted. Everything else you'll find online, unfortunately, when it comes to Israel 9/11, is coming from right wing sources. Unfortunately, fringe right wing, not conservative talking points. Talk about the real, like Q people, Alex Jones, the irresponsible people that are trying to drag you, the good people here, trying to drag you in the mud with them. Don't let it happen. Don't let that happen. Be responsible. Now, I try, not to make it about me, because you know what? I'm just a vessel. I'm a nobody. I'm not an expert in this field. I'm a student just like you. I read books and I read documents and files, and I have more time to read them. And we need more good people involved in this investigation, because the truth movement is fractured, basically. And they're fractured because of fringe conspiracy theories. And a lot of it's coming from the Israeli point of view, unfortunately. That's why I wanted to do this video. I wanted to do this video to elucidate the information that is coming from the source of the FBI who investigated this matter. Everything else is conspiracy, fringe conspiracy. It's not to be trusted. And use caution. I'm not telling you to believe me. And I want you to do the research and say, hey, is this guy telling the truth? Can I find the information that he said in this video? Well, I hope you do. But I want you to also employ that same type of thinking to everybody else that you come across, including me. Because I don't want you to believe me. I want you to know something. That's why I read that quote to you, because it's important. Knowledge, information leads to evidence. And with evidence, we could go to court and we can act on it. But I need more help. I need more good people. And that's why, I'll end it on this. And I hate to sound like a broken record, to you guys in the room, you may feel like you're security conscious. 3 years ago, I never did a video before. I was scared. I said, well, I'm not a handsome guy, and I don't like my accent. I'm from New York. I have this with very, very obnoxious accent, I think, and I couldn't tell you that, I'm so very glad I went down this road because we need more people involved in 9/11, but we need more careful people. And that's what I'm hoping to portray to you is that you look, I'm a regular person just like you. I'm shooting this out of my bedroom in the hopes of trying to make you look trying to make it comfortable for you. And I'm out in the shooting time in a white t-shirt, and all I'm doing is broadcasting evidence and facts for you. That's it. That's all I got. That's all I want to give. And we can speculate later and talk about our personal thoughts on the matter, and that's fine. But I need you to come on up, make your own videos, open your channels. Some of you guys know what you're talking about, and you know more than the average person. The average person, when it comes to 9/11, is basically ignorant. And it's unfortunate because you ain't going to get anything out of the legacy media, state owned media, or the legacy media, independent media. Very few reputable channels. Scott Horton, Ryan Dawson, DJ Thermal Detonator, Robbie Martin, Ray Nowolski, Paul Thompson. I can name on my hand. That's how little. They're all reputable people. So yeah, you guys, think about it. I'm not pushing you. I don't want to push you. Think about it. Think about doing a video, a 5-minute video. How about an article? Short article, 2 minutes. Something that can get across to get other people involved. And when you can get other people involved, you're no longer the student, you're the teacher. And then you could persuade them to become teachers later. And that's how you build a movement. And I'll end it at that. And have a good night and a good weekend, guys. Thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate it. Thank you.